Okay, so I kind of feel weird about doing this video, mostly because I feel I shouldn't put words in my fellow INTJs' mouths. Um, this video is actually a question requested by a viewer, KD. So thank you for it, and I will try to answer. And uh, so I'll just dive into the question. Why would a male INTJ disappear? I'm reading off this on their long-term dates, even though they made initial plans with them, and then they disappear. So I'd love to hear what INTJ males mention. I've definitely noticed some in the comments saying that a lot of the stuff that they see on this channel are similar, are from the female point of view, are very similar to what they kind of think. So I hope I can add maybe a bit of perspective, but we shall see. So KD, I have to say, and for folks that are interested in this question, this is again, it's very like my own viewpoint as an INTJ female regarding INTJ male on this topic. So the three things that jump out to me in this question right off the bat is the mentioning of long-term and relationship and initial plans and disappearing. So there's a lot of context that isn't in this question. So I've looked at a couple of different approaches of looking at this because maybe the terminology that they're mentioning. When I see long-term date, I am going to make the assumption that you have been seeing this INTJ male for a while. And if so, I am going to put in presumptions that you are at a point where he actually is starting to invest time with you according to what long-term would be seeing. And so with that, there's so many questions in this. I wish it was a little bit more articulated. Because for INTJs in general, I'm going to throw out, if we've spent our own personal time spending time with another individual, that means that our opportunity cost of building our own stores of internal energy by ourselves doing things that we want, we have said that that isn't as important as what's interesting over here. So we are actively being interested in foregoing what usually, so that means that there's enough energy in this relationship. So if that's the case, it doesn't really ring true to get to the next part. But I am going to set this up first using that premise. The second part regarding the initial plans with them. So again, kind of vague. However, it sounds to me that potentially this is something that was planned, as some sort of event that was planned a bit in advance. And so that's where I'm coming from on this understanding. And if that is the case, from an INTJ lens, I don't know about the male side, but INTJ lenses, we have a million things going on in our brain at any one time. And we aren't fired up usually about events. So we have to physically write them down so we can buffer the time before that event and after that event in order to have that event. Unless we are so into you, like I said, where we will forego our rebuilding time of alone time doing things that recharge us because it is so enriching and engaging that it isn't work to do that with that person. So it wouldn't matter if it was mushroom picking or going to someone's bar mitzvah. The fact is that it's, if you're invested with that person, you've said yes, that means that you are going to go and you want to go with that person because everything will be interesting with that person because you find them, there's certain things about them that you like exploring and sharing and building these mutual shared experiences that add to the context of the INTJ's life that they wouldn't get when they were sitting at home. Now, remember, we aren't like a lot of, the people that are external facing. We don't sit there and look for the invites, but so that means that there's a very vested commitment to do something long term with that plan with that. So like when I hear initial plans, that means there's planning involved. And so there's the two things. So an INTJ could very well forget, even though they're invested, they could very well forget that. I mean, I am the poster child to make sure that I have lists and lists and calendars and reminders, because anything that isn't part of the everyday kind of is just something that just comes up and I have to prepare for, like I said. So the last part is the one that kind of makes me confused, because the viewer mentions disappear. So disappear, my assumption is that that person just did not didn't contact and say that they weren't coming, and haven't followed up and haven't, I'm making an assumption that that person hasn't been able to get a hold of the INTJ afterwards, basically a ghosting situation. I'm throwing that out as what they're inferring. And that is something that, yes, INTJs, by no means am I labeling anything on this. There could be a propensity for someone forgetting, but if that's the case, the INTJ, if you, like, normally you would know that INTJ if you've been in a long-term relationship or dating that person for long enough. It's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna totally forget, or they're gonna try and not go because they don't want, like, no one didn't want to go to the quinceañera or whatever of your cousin. I don't know, but point is that you should, like, there should be some sort of meshing of understanding of behaviors that would go together on that. If they totally forgot, say they were stuck in the lab and totally lost track of time, that person, once you blew up their inbox or texts with where the heck are you, what's going on, they're going to call you back and be like, I am so sorry, I totally forgot, but this is why, like, was so important. And you can totally, from my perspective, you can readily feel validated that is sincere, because we aren't, again, people that are going to go find something cooler to do. If anything, we'd be holed up in our house because that's what we would prefer to do. But again, it goes back to the interest in that relationship. If it is as important or more important than that recharging time to be with that person, and they just didn't show up, they're going to feel horrible and they're going to try and make concessions. So if they just didn't, like, after all, didn't follow up, didn't do anything, then it goes into a question of, and I'm looking at my notes just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. What it goes back to maybe determining whether, like, what kind of relationship was either articulated or sensed, because I mean, both sides have different interpretations. For me, myself, I am not one to go and throw a lot of lovely, superfluous, and unnecessary love bombs towards someone as a short game. Because as myself, as an INTJ female, I don't want that, because I don't want expectation that I will have to, like, live up to something that I'm not authentically going to do, because I don't know how I feel about that person enough yet. So if there might be maybe a disconnect on how, what the one side feels as long-term and what that relationship is versus what the INTJ male might see. And that interpretation might cause the misunderstanding that there was maybe more depth or more meat in that relationship. And then that leads into, if this male INTJ isn't intensely invested enough for like giving up the recharge time as the benchmark, then it is very easy for that INTJ male to, and again, this is all speculation, to not even notice that it's gone. It wouldn't even be on the radar that something was on. He would even maybe forget to make those notes or pay attention to his phone enough to get that message saying, are you coming? Or are we doing this, or whatever? And then on top of it, that's where the disappearing could come in, because the INTJ male, for example, he totally missed that event, and he took it as, like, looking back, he totally forgot, didn't clue in, and then sees the phone blowing up, and he's gonna do a quick calculation in his mind where it's like, I haven't felt anything super intense one way or another. It hasn't really grabbed me yet. I've been spending some time with this person, but I haven't really, interesting, but maybe not getting to that factor that is, like, again, going to pull me away from doing my nerdy things at home that recharges. And they're going to do a value weighting and maybe think and say, it is not worth the fallout. And this is horrible, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because I don't know the context and I'm not an INTJ male. However, they might look at it and just be like, we don't have, like, they look at the criteria. We don't have enough in common, that it's not going to have fallout for my family, social life, friends. This is a person that I just kind of happenstance met. We got along well, but it's nothing that is like, I haven't felt any neediness in it, and therefore I am not going to go back and get a lashing where emotions are flying at me. I'm going to go white with, like, complete deer in the headlights, because actually I'm thinking Talladega Nights, where it's like, where Will Ferrell is like, I don't know what to do with my hands. That kind of, like, just stuck, where That's our worst situation. And with someone that we don't have to do that with, this is a nice to have, not a need to have. They might be a total dick and just leave, because you know what? You might blow up my phone a little bit, but chances are you're going to find someone better than this situation, because let's be honest, if that happens, why would you want them anyways? And they don't want you to want them because they just acted like a douche, and that goes against their moral code in general. They don't want to be a douche. They want to be a person that they invest with another person and make something bigger and more interesting out of their lives. But they don't want to be like hung in the court square over something that obviously did not get internalized enough to be of value. And this is horrible. I'm saying this very directly. Welcome again to INTJs. We are horrible. I have no, or when it comes to, like, I'm horrible when it comes to being straight talk about some stuff, but like, it isn't like, chances are from an INTJ perspective, it is something that you're gonna be in so much of a better situation with someone who actually wants to potentially be on those long-term plans and wants to actively do that stuff with you, because you're a valuable and important enough person to have that special experience with someone. And so this is, I feel really harsh with this one. I expect to hear all sorts of comments, and I'd love to hear from all the different walks of life, old, young, all different MBTI types, as well as my fellow MBTI males, to hear if I was on the mark or completely off the mark, because again, I'm speculating on a different gender. So anyways, as always, again, comments, love to hear them. Love getting your interesting questions. So if you have something that you're interested in seeing in a video, totally put it in the comments, and hopefully I'll be able to get to it. I'm kind of still staying on a fairly consistent roll here, so fingers crossed that I keep it going. And thanks so much.